Well, I am fully convinced that viewer and commenter Robert Phelps is challenging me to explore the various aspects of piloting a DC-3 or C-47. He has written about his experiences in flight training, wherein his instructor had him touch alternate wheels on, I presume on landing or maybe on a low pass, in a crosswind to explore his aircraft control. These days, I don't think a flight instructor would either make you do that or even let you do that, but this is a fake airplane after all, and that is a fake vehicular assembly building there, and that is a fake space shuttle on a fake 747 transporter. And that means that we are at the fake shuttle landing facility here at Cape Canaveral. Reason why we're here is because it's a nice long runway. It's a nice wide runway. There's no terrain around it. So we're going to try a little variation first. And bear in mind, a lot of this has to do with the controllability of whatever flight stick, yoke, or joystick, or mouse, or whatever setup you happen to have. And I'm lucky I happen to have a Brunner control loading yoke. However, I am unlucky to have my own set of skills. So what we've got here is a recipe perhaps for a reasonably decent skill building exercise, but also just some random wild shit. So what I'm going to do first is, since we've got such a long runway, is I'm going to test out the whole concept here of one main wheel touching at a time. And the way I'm going to do it is to accelerate up to just about a kind of a minimum unstick speed, and then I'm going to rotate the wheel like so. However, what we're going to have to do, because that of course creates a yaw coupling, is we're also going to have to put in a little bit of opposite rudder to keep the airplane straight on the runway. Now, I don't know if we can do this at all, but we're going to give it a try. And then once we do, we'll get up in the air and we will try it on landing, which means that we'll have to also combine that with arresting our sink. But for the very first part of this exercise, I want to first just slowly accelerate up to some sort of flying speed, or close to flying speed, at least a speed in which the ailerons, the wing, will work. And we know that it'll start to work at about 70 knots. And we know that it'll take, approximately, I don't know, about 15, 20 inches of manifold pressure to make it happen, which of course will accelerate us very, very slowly, hence the long runway. Now, my only concern is that the slow acceleration will maximize the amount of time that we in X-Plane here are in that uncontrollable, that uncomfortable phase of rollout / flight, when there isn't a whole lot of airflow over the tailplane, which means that possibly it may limit our controllability, but we'll find that out as we go. So let me just get our trim to a reasonable takeoff setting, right about there. That's been comfortable before. And what we'll do is we will slowly set some sort of, in essence, a kind of landing power. What I might do actually is first set higher power to accelerate, and then I'll back off of it. What I don't want to do is start flying. Okay, I can feel the controls come alive. I'll first do this to the right. Okay, let me just wait for airspeed to come alive. This could be problematic because I don't have a lot of controllability at this point, as you can see. In the real plane you would have quite a bit more. Let me just abort this right here first. I don't think that's going to be the right approach, at least not in X-plane. So let's just put an end to that right there. And you notice how touchy the brakes are. If I put the brakes on any more than about a smidge, the whole thing comes forward. So I think what we'll do is we'll accelerate to flying speed and then back off the throttle a little bit. So bring the stick full back, give it a good whack of beans. Okay, that feels better. Okay, airspeed is coming alive. Nose is coming forward. Okay, now just roll off the power and maintain that and not accelerate. Let's see if we can get a good speed there. All right, we're about 80. That's almost too fast. Let me slow down a little bit. Okay, now left rudder, right aileron. Hold it, hold it, hold it. Oh, we're flying. Okay, we'll touch down. Now let me just roll off the power a bit more. Now we're still flying. Not flying and bouncing. Let's come off the power a bit more. Maintain center line. Okay, there we go. Left aileron and right rudder. There we are. Now right aileron and left rudder. Okay, there we go. Okay, so it's doable, so let's get in the air. Hence the long runway, of course. Bring up the gear, pitch for about 110, and come around. All right, this is ortho scenery, but it hardly matters. It's so damn flat. So what we'll do is we'll come around. Get a good view of the Cape here. We'll get in landing configuration, and then we'll do our little touches. I'm sure I could get a lot better at this simply with practice. We'll go past the launch pads here. 39A and B complexes, you can see them. Those were both used for Apollo flights. Roll off the power a bit here. Come around to what? 150. There we are. There's the VAB. And there are the pads. Always forget which one is A, which is B. It's an immense runway. I think it's about 16,000, 17,000 feet. And there are other launch complexes sort of studded along here. This is what, the Banana River? Not quite a river, but I guess You take what you can get in Florida. Let's see where we are. All right, we'll get our gear down. Make our turn right about there. That'll set us up on a decent length final. Get stabilized. Not sure if the VAB is correctly proportioned there. It seems a little short, but who's complaining? And there's a ton, an absolute metric ton of nose up pitch change on the flaps. I'm not sure if that's good or not, but we just ballooned up in altitude there. All right, so again, we're going to make our turn right about there. Our gear is down. Got 2 greens. You don't get 3 greens, you just get 2. Should really set up track IR again, but I haven't yet. I also don't know why our rudder is so grossly out of trim there. It should not be. Just take a quick look. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's inordinately sensitive to it, I'm not sure. All right, we'll turn final right about here. I mean, turn base right about here. Silly me for rolling into it first instead of using the rudder more. Plane demands quite a bit of rudder. Let's see where we are. Okay, we're on a nice base leg right there. Yep, here we go. Little choppy technique. And just a little slow. There we go. Well, what we'll do is we'll whack in some more flaps. That'll help. And round we come. A little bit of a shallow turn to final, but we'll make it. Look at the size of that runway. I mean, it almost looks distorted. It's so large. So we will round out, and then we'll just ease off the power, and we'll approach the runway with ever-increasing slowitude. I'm using too much rudder. All right, so here we come. We're coming down 85, about 450 feet per minute, as we should be. Retrim a bit. We're 3/4 flaps. That should be about right. I'm in between a little trim setting here. I don't want to be. I have fairly light controls. Now we're at 80. It's probably a little slow. And we're just a little high, so I'm going to move our aim point just a little higher up in our windshield. Trim, keep the speed right about there, and then I'll flatten out the approach just as we come over that overrun area, right about 1, 2, now. Okay, so we'll roll off some power, walk back the trim, and I'm just going to flatten this out here. First we'll touch both. first we'll maintain center line if we can. Okay, so both first. There we go. And now we'll come up, add a little bit of power to keep us level. Now we'll touch the right and hold it. And now we'll come up again, add a little power, come off the power again, and I want to strike a pod here, and we'll touch the left in a second. I think we touched the second without even knowing it. That was very good. All right, now we will center ourselves, roll off the power. Shall we try for a three-pointer? Let's. Okay, we'll go to takeoff power here. Bring up one notch of flaps. And go flying again. Do a tighter pattern this time. Mr. Phelps will have to advise me about the advisability of raising the gear in a turn. Some airplanes don't like that, others are indifferent. Just widen out a little bit here. The reward in all of this is learning your airplane and getting a feel for it. And it's sometimes frustrating as hell because of control issues, and also because you don't have the same kind of feedback you have in an airplane. It's complaining because I've got too much flappage. Alright, so we'll come around again here. We'll buzz the VAB this time. You can see my nose wandering up and down, and that's because I'm in between trim settings, so I'm alternatively pulling too hard and too little. And so, in essence, I'm causing an oscillation. All right, let's level out here, see where we are. There we go. This time we will turn at the VAB. So a little tighter pattern. Pretend we're flying into a fairly short runway. Let's get the gear down. Retrim for a slower speed, get our power off. Oh, thank you, Alaska Airlines. I signed up for their frequent flyer program. I don't know why I did. And now I get 3 emails a day. I think actually what I did was I signed up for their frequent email program, is what it really is. All right, so there we are. Get another whack of flaps in. I'm going to give it a little shove nose down so we don't balloon up. Now this time when I make the turn, I'm going to start with the rudder. I'm going to lead with the rudder, because apparently this airplane kind of demands it. Okay, the 3/4 flaps in, a little more power to fight the drag. There we go. Okay, rudder first, and roll. That's better. Get a much more positive turn. Okay, there we go. And let's just see where we are. There we are. Okay, that should be good. Let's get all our flaps in. Little nose down trim. It really balloons. I don't know if that's realistic. Okay, this This time we'll wait on the turn. Let me just see if I have enough speed to make the turn. Give us a little more power here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let us sink in the turn. As long as our alpha is pointing more towards the ground, then we can make a fairly steep turn at a slow speed. It's when you got a big ass alpha and a big ass turn and a slow ass speed, then you got trouble. All right, now let's try to get a good 3-point landing here. So we'll slow down. Now I don't know if we're going to make a good 3-point landing and hit the touchdown zone. At this point, it's just a matter of getting a good 3-point landing, which is why we've got this monstrous long runway. Okay, first I'm going to slow down a bit more than I have. And again, I'm not sure how to trim. And we're mushing on. There we go. All right. I'm going to approach the 3-point attitude here and try and keep the sink from sinking too much. There we go. Now I don't want to slam onto the runway like I did last time. There we go. Alright, so that was a 3-point landing, and you can actually land in pretty tight spot. I don't know if that was a perfect 3-point landing, but let's see what it looked like. Yes, I know, Robert, I can just click here, but I always click on the wrong place. This time I clicked on the right place, sort of. All right, so we go from that to about 60 degrees further nose forward than that. So this is mimicking a tight approach to a short field. Full flaps, a little slow. I really don't have the right feel for this exactly, but I'm beginning to get the right picture. So now, watch this. We start to adopt a 3-point attitude right about there. We bring it back and back and back. Yeah, it's not quite a 3-pointer, but, well, pretty goddamn close. All right. Now, that was more tentative than it would be if I really knew what I was doing. If I really knew what I was doing, well, let's see where we ended up on the runway here. Let's just pause here and see about where we are. Guess we ended up, oh well, there should be a, hang on, there's a marker right there. Did we really end up, I guess we ended up 6,000 feet into the runway. Oh, no, we ended up 4,000 feet into the runway. All right, let's see where we touched down. See, I felt my way into that position. If I were really confident about my flying skills, I would. Let's see where we touch. Hang on. Better way to do this, where I can actually see. There we are. Except it's not marked. Normally they're marked on both sides, but here, let's just do that. And all right, so we touched down 2,000 feet in. If we were really being perfectionists, we touch down right about there. We would not touch down on the numbers unless we absolutely, positively had to, because that's just not really where you're supposed to land, for a whole variety of reasons, including that there could be obstacles on the way in, and you don't want to approach that flatly unless you're absolutely bent on doing a complete and utter, at all costs, short field landing. But as you can see right here, we kind of groped our way towards a three-point landing. I could have pulled back a little bit more and rolled off the power a little bit quicker, because then we would have both gotten this tail wheel back a little bit sooner and also removed the power that could cause us to balloon up. But, you know, with practice will come a much better, you know what, that's pretty damn good. Look at that. That's pretty near. Let's do this in real time. That's just nice. Here, we'll do the old. I'm doing this so I can get the right location here, Robert. All right, right about there. Okay, so I can set this up nicely for the old Hawaii 5-0 shot. There we are. Well, you know what? Let's do it right about here. I don't want it to come and squash us. That's kind of uncomfortable. But there we are. All right. Maybe back right about there. All right. I'm dealing with the mushiness right here, and also just the noise in my yoke and the noise in my hands. You know, because all of us except maybe Neil Armstrong and Bob Hoover and Chuck Yeager, all of us tend to have wandering hands a little bit. All right, so here we go. Ah, what a lovely plane. It really is. And there we go. You see, we get into that three-point attitude, and we kind of grope around for a second, float right there, and also miss center line there. A little bounce. But that's more or less how you do that. And let's see it one more time from the cockpit. And then, of course, X-Plane's shittiness takes over. So if I had more confidence, what I would do is right about here, let's just look at the power. Right about here, I'd be off the power and already pulling back more, because you can see I've got 12 knots to spare before we stall. So, you know, this was sort of a three-point landing in slow motion. And I should have been firmer about keeping the stick back. Let's see if it moves. Yeah, there, you can see it. All right, so you can see I'm going to start to pull to get back into that attitude right there. And you see I tweaked the power a little bit so that we don't sink too fast. Okay, now we pull and pull, but not quite enough and not quite sustained enough. I think I have this fear of bouncing and floating. But there you have it. That is a little exercise in airplane control, and something you can practice, I suppose, in any airplane. And it'll help you in the real legitimate phases of flight, and it's fun to do because probably you couldn't do it in real life, but it possibly couldn't hurt your real world skills as long as you don't, as they say, try this at home. But in the meantime, try it at home. And I'll see you again next time. Thanks, Bob. Bye-bye.